Have you ever walked into a room and felt that something was wrong, even though everyone else seemed perfectly comfortable? No one had raised their voice. No one had admitted they were upset. And yet, somehow, you already knew. A smile that arrived just a little too late. A sentence that sounded carefully rehearsed. Eyes that agreed, while the heart quietly refused. Some people call this intuition. Others call it overthinking. But what if neither is true? What if you simply notice what most people overlook? Some minds don't just listen to words. They quietly collect the spaces between them. A slight change in someone's breathing, the hesitation before an answer, a laugh that lingers a moment too long. Each detail seems meaningless on its own, but together, they tell a story that's difficult to ignore. It feels like carrying a lantern through a world that's learned to live comfortably in the shadows. You don't search for hidden truths. They simply reveal themselves. And while many people imagine this as a gift, those who live with it know another side of the story. Because seeing more often means carrying more. Psychologists have found that our brains process far more information than we're consciously aware of. Most of it is quietly filtered away before it ever reaches our attention. But for some people, that filter isn't quite as thick. Their minds notice tiny inconsistencies almost automatically. A voice that doesn't match an expression. Confidence covering fear. Kindness hiding resentment. It isn't magic. Your mind simply notices patterns before your thoughts have time to explain them. It quietly connects pieces, long before you're aware that it's doing so. And while that ability can help you understand people more deeply, it can also make the world feel unbearably heavy, because once you begin seeing beneath the surface, it's almost impossible to return to believing appearances. You start recognizing the exhaustion behind someone's anger, the loneliness hidden beneath endless jokes, the insecurity disguised as confidence. Suddenly, people become easier to understand, yet much harder to trust. Because once you've seen behind enough masks, every smile begins to ask a question. And that's where the burden begins. Not because you're imagining things, but because you're noticing things most people never stop to see. At first, it feels like clarity. Eventually, it begins to feel like isolation. Because the more clearly you understand others, the more you realize how rarely anyone truly understands you. One of the quietest pains of being deeply perceptive is discovering that truth doesn't always bring people closer. Sometimes, it pushes them away. Most relationships survive because of small illusion. People soften the truth, hide their fear, smile through disappointment, pretend they're stronger than they really are. Not because they're trying to deceive, but because those masks help them feel safe. Then someone like you arrives. You notice the cracks without trying, the jealousy hidden inside, congratulations, the fear beneath control, the sadness tucked inside anger. You may never say a word, yet somehow, people feel seen, and being truly seen can be frightening. Not everyone wants their hidden wounds reflected back at them. So, instead of questioning the mask, they question the mirror that reflected it. Little by little, you learn a painful lesson. Sometimes silence protects relationships better than honesty. Not because honesty is wrong, but because not every heart is ready to receive it. So you begin hiding your own thoughts, not because you've stopped seeing, but because you've learned that not every truth is welcome. And that silence creates a loneliness few people ever notice. After living this way for long enough, something inside you begins to change. You stop taking people's words at face value. Experience has taught you that words are often the least honest part of a conversation. Without realizing it, your mind quietly becomes an investigator. Every delayed reply feels like a clue. Every change in someone's tone becomes evidence. Every silence begins asking questions. Did I say something wrong? Are they hiding something? Have they already decided to leave? Your mind isn't trying to create problems. It's trying to prevent pain. Somewhere along the way, it learned that paying attention could keep you safe. So it keeps searching, always scanning, always preparing. But the strange thing is, most of the time, nothing actually happens. The friend was simply busy. The message was forgotten. The tired expression had nothing to do with you. Yet your nervous system remembers something your conscious mind often forgets. That missing an important signal once might have led to pain. So it chooses constant vigilance over uncertainty. At first, this feels like protection. But, little by little, protection becomes hypervigilance. And hypervigilance quietly becomes exhaustion. Because when your mind never stops watching, your heart never truly rests. Conversations become investigations. Silence becomes suspicion. Love becomes something you analyze instead of something you experience. And without realizing it, you begin protecting yourself from wounds that haven't happened. A sunset passes unnoticed. A laugh is interrupted by doubt. A kind gesture is met with suspicion. Sometimes, the greatest thing your mind steals from you isn't happiness. It's the present moment. Because while your body is here, your mind is already living inside tomorrow, searching for storms that may never arrive. And the strange part is, the future you're trying so hard to protect yourself from almost never unfolds the way you imagined. Yet your heart has already carried its weight over and over again. No wonder you're tired. No wonder you're tired. Because the weight you've been carrying was never just your own. When you spend years reading between the lines, feeling emotions that no one speaks aloud, and noticing burdens people don't even realize they're carrying, your own heart slowly becomes crowded. Eventually, another kind of loneliness begins to appear, one that almost no one talks about. People often believe that those who understand others must also feel deeply understood themselves, but the opposite is often true. Because you're so good at reading emotions, you notice what people need before they ask. You comfort them. You listen. You choose your words carefully. You become the safe place, the calm voice, the quiet strength everyone leans on. People leave your conversations feeling lighter, while you quietly carry pieces of what they left behind. But very few people ever stop to ask, who's carrying you? They assume you're fine. They admire your calmness. They rely on your strength. Yet they rarely notice how much energy it takes simply to be you. Perhaps that's why so many deeply perceptive people slowly begin pulling away. Not because they've stopped caring, but because constant awareness is expensive. Every conversation asks for energy. Every relationship asks your mind to notice hundreds of tiny details most people never even see. Eventually, solitude stops feeling lonely. It begins to feel peaceful. Not because isolation heals you, but because silence asks nothing from you. For the first time, your mind isn't trying to understand anyone. It can simply rest. And maybe that's where healing truly begins. Not by seeing less, but by carrying less. Your sensitivity was never your burden. Carrying everything you noticed was. Wisdom begins the moment you realize something simple. Seeing something doesn't mean you have to carry it. Imagine standing beside a quiet river. Leaves drift across the surface, one after another. You notice every single one, but you don't step into the water to catch them. You simply let them pass. Thoughts can be the same. People can be the same. You can notice someone's insecurity without making it your responsibility to heal. You can recognize manipulation without feeling obligated to expose it. You can sense that a relationship may not last forever and still choose to love wholeheartedly today. Because life has never promised certainty, only moments. And moments become memories only when we're fully present inside them. The strongest people aren't those who never get hurt. They're the ones who accept that love has always carried risk and still choose to love anyway. Perhaps that's what true perception was always meant to become. Not an endless search for hidden flaws, but a quiet understanding of human nature, a way of seeing people without needing to judge them, of recognizing fear without absorbing it, of noticing pain without making it your own, because there is a profound difference between carrying a light and carrying the weight of everything that light reveals. One gives direction. The other steals your peace. A lighthouse understands this. It doesn't chase every ship caught in a storm. It simply stands, steady, calm, allowing its light to guide those willing to follow it. Perhaps that's your purpose too. Not to expose every lie, not to save every wounded soul, not to carry the emotional weight of every room you enter, but to protect your own peace while remaining kind enough to share it. So, before you leave today, I want to ask you one final question. What if the exhaustion you've carried for so long was never proof that you were too sensitive, but proof that you've been carrying things that never belonged to you? Other people's fears, other people's expectations, other people's hidden battles. Maybe peace begins with a quieter question. Is this mine to carry? If the answer is no, let it pass. Not because you don't care, but because your compassion deserves boundaries. Even the strongest heart needs somewhere to rest. The next time your mind begins piecing together every tiny detail, pause, take one slow breath, and remind yourself, you don't have to solve every mystery. To live a meaningful life, some answers arrive only with time. Some people remove their own masks when they finally feel safe enough. Your gift was never meant to make life heavier. It was meant to help you move through the world with greater understanding, to choose your relationships wisely, to love deeply, and to protect your peace without losing your kindness. Because the people who quietly change the world are rarely the loudest. They're the ones who bring calm into chaos, who understand without controlling, who see without condemning, who remain gentle in a world that often mistakes gentleness for weakness. If you recognized yourself somewhere in this journey, I hope you remember this. You were never given clear eyes, so you could carry everyone else's darkness. You were given clear eyes, so you could recognize where your own light belongs. The world doesn't need another person who notices every wound. It needs someone who can notice a wound without forgetting to protect their own heart. Perhaps that lantern you've carried for so long was never meant to illuminate every hidden corner of someone else's life. Perhaps it was always meant to help you find your own way home, because the clearest eyes aren't the ones that see the most. They're the ones that know which truths deserve their light and which can be gently released. And perhaps, that has been your quiet power all along.